Welcome to the B2B Category Creators Podcast, hosted by Gil Alouche, founder and CEO of Metadata.io. This podcast is all about sharing the real and sometimes uncomfortable secrets of category creation in the B2B software space. On today's special episode, we have three of the founding members of Women in Revenue, Shari Johnston, Lauren Goldstein, and Cristina Saunders, along with a special guest host, Jason Widup. Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of B2B Category Creators. I'm your guest host this time, Jason Widup. Usually it's my CEO Gil that's hosting, and I'm doing it because this is a special episode that we have today, that we've got some of the founding members of the Women in Revenue team with us today. We got Shari Johnston, Lauren Goldstein, and Cristina Saunders. And I'm just so happy to have all of you on today. I'm going to have you introduce yourselves, but I'm going to say a little bit about what I know about the Women in Revenue organization, I guess, which isn't a ton, but I've known the Women in Revenue organization, I guess, since I've known Lauren for a long time. And we've talked about it in the past, but really an organization that's really meant to empower women leaders and up and coming leaders, and really drive towards that more equality state for women in the workplace and other areas. I know I did a horrible job, and you all can help correct me on that. But let's start with intros. So Shari, why don't you go first, introduce yourself, and we'll go around the horn, and then we'll kind of come back and start talking about, Women in Revenue, the group, and what you guys have done to really build the organization.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us, Jason. I'm Shari Johnston. I'm the founder of Women in Revenue, and my day job, I'm a partner at the consulting firm Winning by Design. So long time in the B2B SaaS world, and excited to talk to you guys about the organization today.
Awesome. Thank you. Lauren, you want to go next?
Thank you, Lauren Goldstein, and I have the pleasure of being the interim executive director for Women in Revenue. I will put a plug in. We are actively looking to hire a full-time executive director. But I am a co-founder of Women in Revenue and come from a 25-year background in the intersection of B2B, marketing, sales, and customer experience. So happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks. And Chrissy.
Hey, I'm Cristina Saunders, and I'm the CEO of CS2 Marketing. We're a marketing ops and revenue ops technology consulting firm based out of the Bay Area, but supporting teams across the US and abroad. And I'm also one of the co-founders of Women in Revenue. I'm very excited to be on to talk about us and get the word out to your listeners.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on. And, I've got a little bit more of a connection to, I guess, a couple of you. I mean, Lauren and I worked together 10 plus years ago, I think, at Babcock and Jenkins.
In many different capacities, both as teammates and in a client relationship. So It's been a long time.
Yep. And it's been a long time, and just one of my favorite people. And Chrissy just doesn't know this. I don't know Chrissy very well, but I'm a marketing ops nerd. And so I've been following Chrissy for a long time too. And Shari, I've known you as the founder of Women in Revenue, just, kind of after talking to Lauren about it and stuff. So just so happy to have all of you on. We're going to get right into it. So I want to start with, just for folks that might not be familiar with the organization, Shari, talk to us a little bit about what is Women in Revenue? What are you guys doing? And what are some of your, or just what is it and how did it come to be? Let's start there.
Sure. So in about late 2017, I had come off of my last fifth B2B SaaS company startup, and at that point had some years under me in my career, but had also had a few pivotal moments where I felt like there needed to be some more support in the tech world around women in embracing their careers and empowering them. A couple of pivotal moments were just, in coaching my staff one day in finding a new role. She just continued to point out how many executive teams were just that she looked at for new career opportunities were just all white male men. And this happened repeatedly. And so that kind of sparked something. And then a few other stories of that were really a struggle to overcome in the tech world, that including the speaking engagements that we see often that are also very male dominated, and wanting to really make a change. And I felt like at that point in my career, I was in a place to help make a change and to lead that effort. And also felt a real hole in the market for women in our position to have that network of support and to have that voice into the market, that these things needed to change. But I'll tell you, I wouldn't have ever taken this leap if it weren't for those phone calls I made to Lauren, Chrissy, and the other 8 board members who enthusiastically jumped in without any hesitation to support me on this journey, and also felt that need.
That's awesome. So how did you know Lauren? So when you made that phone call, how did you know Lauren from before that phone call?
Yeah, well, Lauren and I worked together similarly. I was a client of Lauren's. I don't want to date myself, so I won't put the number of years, but a very long time ago. So we've known each other throughout the years. And Chrissy, I think I was one of her very first clients at CS2 when I was a leader in marketing.
Nice.
So
Okay.
we have a long history with both of them.
Lauren, what was that first phone call like? So you get the phone call from Shari. What does she say? And then how and are you just immediately on board? How did that go?
So I remember I get the phone call. It's the middle of the day. I'm in my WeWork and I go hop into a private space. And she says, I have this kind of wild idea. I want to pay it forward. I want to give back and really help women that are moving in their career with mentorship. And I have this idea. This was in, I think, like maybe August or September. She said, I want to do an event in the fall. And I think we could maybe get like 100 people there. And the idea of paying it forward and really helping women in their careers, in sales, in marketing, I loved that. But her timeline for how much need she thought there would be, I thought it was absolutely, a big audacious goal. But I said, absolutely. I didn't even have to think about it, because I knew in my career having access to that type of mentorship had been a struggle, and I was absolutely at a place that I wanted to pay it forward.
Nice. Chrissy, how about you? How was that phone call with you?
Yeah, I think mine was in person. I think Shari and I had both met discussing her next move into being on her own. And I think we just had shared some stories. I think for myself, it's really challenging, I think, in some cases, as you get more into leadership and even with other women and how we support each other. And I thought there needs to be more like positive grounds, I think, and more examples of rising each other up. I think sometimes because we, as women, we feel like we have adversity, we feel like we're fighting against other women for the same positions. And if anything, it does us a disfavor, because we need more support. We should be supporting each other. And so that's always been a big thing that I had seen before, being in-house before I started CS2. So I was on board with that. And then also being in the marketing ops space, and just it felt very male dominated.
Yep.
From a thought leadership standpoint, I think even now instantly you think of a few males and not a lot of women. So that's always been a little bit of a thing that I thought seemed absurd, because I know so many women in the marketing ops space that are just intelligent, amazing. It's just they don't get the same light. So I thought, okay, let's have something where we can celebrate all women and help them rise, and also give them the confidence to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I can relate to you on the marketing ops, because that's kind of how I grew up in marketing, is through ops. So I started in analytics and then kind of went into operations. And it's always, at least for most of that part of my career, it was very heavily male dominated. And I used to give the excuse, when I became a hiring manager, of like, well, I don't have enough, there's not enough women that are applying to my role. And I learned very quickly that like, that's just as much my problem as it is like anybody else's problem. And I didn't know that, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know, in fact, even until somebody pointed out that a couple things I learned. One was and I'm curious if I'm sure you've heard this, the way you write the job description has a big impact on whether a woman will apply for that role. But then an interesting stat I heard, and I'm curious if either any of you have heard this too, is that, let's say, take a given job description. If a man reads it, if he thinks he like can do 30% of it, or I mean, then he's like, yes, I'm in, I'll apply, I'm good, I'm the best fit for this. And a woman reads it, and unless she fits like 90% of it, she doesn't feel the same way. Have you guys heard that stat? Is that an actual stat, or did I just make that up somewhere?
No, that's an actual stat for sure. Yes. I don't have the actual percentage off the top of my head, but I believe it might even be in our survey somewhere. But yeah, that's a big one.
That was so interesting.
Yeah, and
to
I
me.
can say from experience, it like even in hiring examples, I think a man will always be more confident in their skills that like a woman. Sometimes we feel like we need to earn that credibility, and that can then impact like how you come off in an interview. So that's a lot of like the huddles and mentorship that we want to do, is like, how can we support women and be more confident in the interview process, because that does come out. But also educate hiring managers to dig deeper, ask more like tangible, exact questions. Don't just ask very high level things, because that can be better suited to someone who's more confident.
Nice, that makes sense. Well, I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going to cheers to women in revenue. So if y'all have your drink there, cheers. Yes, awesome. We'll go. What is everyone drinking real quick? Lauren, what have you got there?
Well, I've got a little rosé. I think it's kind of a rosé day outside here in Portland, Oregon.
Nice. Sherry, what are you drinking?
I have Sancerre. I wish it was a Sancerre type of day up here in San Francisco, but we've got the June or July gloom going on.
Nice. Chrissy, what do you got?
I have some soda water, but I added a little bit of mezcal that you guys sent me from the freezer.
Nice.
Awesome, so I get not too much though, because I got to get back to work and then also pick up my daughter. So it's a splash.
Well, and this one is a little bit of an interesting one. We usually record a little bit later and East Coast time. And so I got to snuck it in at 2:00 on a Monday. We're usually on a Friday afternoon. This is a Monday afternoon. So I really appreciate it. I've got a little scratch margarita I made for myself. So with tequila that Gil actually sent me. He sends me alcohol every once in a while, just like unprompted. I'm like, what are you trying to say?
Revenue or gamers, Jason, whether it's 2 on a Monday or 7 a.m. on a Thursday, if we're asked to show up, we will be there with the bells on.
Nice, I love it. Cool. So now I want to talk a little bit about some of the tactical stuff. So like, what are some of the things that the Women in Revenue organization does to help women? So like, let's talk about some of the tangible tactical things. Chrissy, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, I would say like we have, it's ever evolving. It's actually something that we're focusing, but we have a lot of different programs at Women in Revenue. But I think the big focus is around kind of like the networking side, which is what a lot of our events are about, in the education. And we have a blog and a newsletter. So education is really big for us. We even do a yearly report based on a survey that we do to our members. So that gives a lot of insight into what are the themes that we should address with our audience. And then the rest of the ladies can support this, but I think the other pieces are around like mentorship. We have a mentorship program that's ever evolving and getting better, that has like huddles, one-to-one mentorship. And then we have some other programs like a speakers bureau where we train and basically, can offer up like these different women as speakers to organizations who are looking to add more women to panels or event speaking opportunities. So we have less manels, as we call them. But yeah, those are the top ones. I think that that from the beginning have really evolved and been there. And event speed, a huge one that has changed since the COVID and has gone digital, which has expanded and our network amazingly. Like our membership base has just blown up since that has happened. And instead of a Bay Area based organization, we're across the US, and we even have people globally who are interested in women in revenue.
Nice. And we just started to work with the organization, actually just about a month ago, I think, right, Lauren? Has it been about a month?
Yes.
And we're super excited to be partnering with you and working with you. I think from our standpoint, we were really looking at two challenges, I guess, or two things we wanted help solving. One is hiring. So one was hiring and figuring out what we can do better, different to ensure we have a more diverse team. Now we're very diverse from a gender perspective in pretty much all areas except sales and marketing right now. And so that's where in marketing, it's not very fair. It's me and one other person so far. So I won't quite take a hit on that one yet, but sales, we're getting up there right now. And we want to figure out what are some good ways of being an attractive place, first of all, for women in sales. But also then for the women we have in the organization, opportunities to help grow and mentorship and those kinds of things, which we don't have internally. We're so small right now, we don't have HR or the things like that to provide some of those opportunities. And so we need to basically be able to provide it with outside help. And so that's really kind of what we're partnering with you folks to do. And I'm really excited about it. I think we're going to meet here pretty soon to talk about getting a session together for all the women in the company and just kind of getting them some understanding of how they can participate. We have our one woman in our sales team did she join yet, Lauren? Did she get on board yet?
Did join. I was going to mention that as Chrissy was talking about some of the great benefits of women in revenue. First and foremost, I want to say thank you, Jason, to you and to Metadata.io, who are sponsors of women in revenue. It's definitely what fuels us and allows us to have things like a mentorship platform, and it allows us to do some of our programming. But one of the other, I'll say, value adds besides the mentorship and the events and the content is we have a very active Slack channel. And in that Slack channel, there is so much conversation going on, everything from job opportunities. And our job opportunities channel is probably the most active. People seeking, people posting. And it's a great way to really tap into all the companies that are listening to this, or all the people. It's a great way to tap in to an amazing network that's 5,000 women strong of great talent. So yes, that's something that's very much a value add. But to your point, sometimes people are interested in more formal mentoring, which we do offer. Sometimes they're interested in more small groups, which we offer. But the benefit also of the Slack channel is that I might be in my first head of marketing role and really wanting to see what a great marketing plan looks like. I might post that out in the channel and I will get dozens of responses back. The community is so generous with thoughts and ideas. And I don't know that Chrissy or Shari or I have ever really experienced something like that in our careers. And so we love that some of that organic sharing is happening in Slack.
That's awesome. Let's talk about some of the challenges you guys have had. So I'm sure it hasn't all been rainbows and unicorns. I don't know, what do people say? So Shari, maybe talk about like what early on. So not super unlike starting a company. I mean, you need people to join, you need them to give their time, and you need supporters and, and all that stuff. And so maybe what were some of those early challenges that you had really getting the organization started?
Yeah, sure. I think, there's one, I guess two challenges I'll share. One is kind of what you're mentioning, kind of more operations challenges. And until this year, we have been an all volunteer organization and had our first hire, not too long ago. That's part-time program manager. We're definitely hoping to grow beyond that. And we're lucky enough to have the community flourish to now 5,000 members and generous sponsors like yourself to help continue to grow to where we can alleviate ourselves from being all volunteer. I think at first it was kind of, a lot of wrangling the troops to get started and just who's doing what and getting people engaged. I'll have to say in the last year and a half, we have a pool of committee volunteers, board volunteers that's quite robust. I believe it's up to 30, 35, Chris, you may know better, where, we have all these women volunteering their time because they're so passionate about this organization. But even with all that love, as you can imagine, an all volunteer organization has its challenges. So we're definitely operationally looking forward to having some paid staff to really have someone waking up every day, this being their mission for women in revenue. I would say the other challenge is you mentioned earlier that you're always learning. And I think, we as an organization are always learning. And I talked about the way that I originally brought the board on, which was fairly organically around women in my network who I thought would be passionate about this cause, and not being super thoughtful beyond the fact that they were women around who I invited. And while they're all incredible women, it wasn't particularly diverse. So like my example of looking at the executive team and seeing all white male men, we had originally an all white, primarily white female board. And, I think that the implications of that were when we run our annual survey, a lot of our audience was not as diverse as we would like it to be. And I think it's going back to that original way of, if you want to attract more female talent, show on your homepage, show with your executive board that you support diversity and that you're in real ways that are tangible. And so we're making those corrections as well to get more geographic diversity, ethnic diversity, age diversity in our board. So we have and can represent women of all different stages and ethnicities. Nice.
That makes sense. Let's talk about successes, because I'm sure there have been so many. I'm curious though about has there been any interesting stories that you didn't anticipate? There was yes, all these things we would assume happen, but there's this one story or this one where it's this just kind of knocked your socks off, or you're just thinking this is just so great. I'm so glad that we've done this because we've helped these people. Any interesting stories like that have come out of the work that you guys are doing?
I'll start with just a milestone. I think that there's dozens, Jason. So if we can, I'd love to have us all go around the horn and share one or two. But we hit a milestone this week of 5,000 members.
Wow.
And when you think that we're not even 3 years old, that is substantial. 5,000 members. Actually, I think we're probably up to 5,100, by now. This was last week that we hit this. And
nice.
It goes to show how much need there is for the support and visibility and empowerment and mentoring and networking that we're providing. So I think that alone has been a real highlight. But again, I think there's dozens of stories. So I'd love to pass the mic to Chrissy or Shari to continue.
Sure, I'm happy to share. Oh, sorry. I'll just share mine quickly. The one that just sticks out to me when you asked the question is, our very first event, we were lucky enough to have some amazing speakers there, and Megan Eisenberg and folks talking about how to progress in your career and even get board positions. It was a sold out event, so I think we're all just thrilled to have that. But the real story that warmed my heart was I was reached out to shortly after that, to where one of the fairly junior, right out of her career members that showed up at the event was placed at a job at one of the speakers' careers shortly after the event happened by that connection. Cool. And so those are the stories that warm my heart. And right out of the bat, we're able to really see that networking happen and those success stories start to flourish.
That's awesome. Chrissy, anyone stick out in your mind?
Yeah, I think there's so many, but I'm glad Lauren mentioned the Slack community, because that is what I think a big value add. I started the Slack community when I was on maternity leave, so that's very very women in revenue supportive during that big transition, and it was great to see it evolve naturally. I think the job opportunities and the job placements. I think to echo Shari, even a few weeks ago, someone mentioned that how happy they were getting just connected to someone for an opportunity that they wouldn't normally have applied for, but had seen it in Women in Revenue, was more open to applying, and then got the job, and both of them were very happy. And I think you continue to see some examples of that. I've had people personally message me and tell me how much the community has meant to them. And even some now a board member, but who was previously a member, I've had say, like, it's just been amazing for her career, like just the connections that she has made and the people that are like singing her praises just from working with her just across the community has then helped her find more opportunities. So the networking aspect and how supportive everyone is and sharing their ideas, and just seeing that and like getting those messages, I think personally is what drives me, especially with a busy schedule, to like continue moving forward, continuing to push this organization forward, because that's all, that's it. That's what I want to see, women supporting women and seeing value from that.
Nice. That's awesome. I'll prep you guys because later on I'm going to ask a question about, oh no, I forgot what I was going to ask. Oh yeah. One tip. So I won't ask it now, but start thinking about one tip that you have for the people listening to make your workplace a more woman or diversity friendly place of work, I guess. I'm just coming up with some of the flies. My words aren't coming to me so eloquently, but think about that. I'll ask that later. I'm curious, as a man, how can men best support the women in revenue community, or just even outside of women in revenue community? How can men in the workplace best support their women colleagues?
I can probably start with this one because I think I alluded to this at the beginning, but before in our prep call, but I think there's a few different things I think men can do. I think one is just being an ally to women, just like really, I think supporting them. And I think people don't realize how much, like as a man, that you can really make an impact by just being that support system for the person, maybe even being a voice, because I think a lot of times everyone's been in certain situations where as a woman you feel like your voice gets lost, or you are maybe mansplained a little bit, like from someone, and to someone to actually see something like that happening and saying, oh, I'm really giving the credit to someone even for an idea or something like that. So I think realizing that it's not just table stakes. It isn't. Like, even if you're in the same role, a woman needs support and needs an ally. And so men to actually take an active role to think about how to do that, I think is definitely the first step. For someone above you, below you, or, in the same role, it can make a huge difference.
And do men participate with women in revenue specifically at all? Like how do they? Yeah, how do they participate? If they do.
Sure, I'm happy to take that one. So it's something, honestly, we've been a little challenged with. We definitely embrace our male counterparts. There's been incredible advocates in the community for women in revenue. Dave Bergotti is one that comes to mind, and Nate Skinner. There's been some of our main sponsors were initiated by our male friends. So definitely support them. We are still looking for ways. We definitely support our male counterparts of helping be mentors to up and coming and existing women leaders. And that's right now the kind of the best way to be engaged. We do have usually at our what was once physical events and now digital events, a small contingent of males who come to hear and are super supportive of our content as well. So several ways to be involved, but we're looking at ways to make that even greater.
Cool. leave it to me to just turn it around. It's like, how can men get involved with, sorry, I just thought about that. I was like, oh, great. I'm carrying this conversation on.
No,
How
Jason,
can men get involved?
it's a good question, and it's one that's come up quite a bit. And I think, when you ask some of the growing pains, it's something, in full transparency, we're trying to find balance for, because I think all of us have had, phenomenal male mentors and business partners in our lives. Listen, you were one of my best partners in crime and so supportive. So we've all had that, and it's finding that right balance of making sure that we tap into all of the greatness that comes with it, but still make sure that there's a safe space that women feel like they can have a really authentic conversation, maybe more so than they would in different companies. So it's something that we're continuing to really work through, and always welcome suggestions and ideas and thoughts.
Awesome. So what's next? So what are some of your loftier, kind of longer term goals for the organization? I don't know where to start. Let's see. Shari, why don't you start?
Yes, we have very lofty goals, and I think we're super proud of the community that's been built so far, and I think the next phase of the organization, we're looking to achieve 100% workplace equity for women in revenue, and that's going to come in the ways of extending programming into how companies can support women. So right now we have a very strong network, but arguably could be a bit of an echo chamber of how do we really ingest change if we're talking within the community. So those programmings may be things like ERG groups. You mentioned the need for that at your organization of, hey, how can we help have a women's voice within your organization and have content and support systems within organizations and help support that infrastructure. So that's kind of one of the main goals we have for phase 2.
Awesome. Okay, so let's leave everybody with some advice, maybe. So I'd like to go around the horn. Where did that come from? I feel old using some of these things. We'll go around the Zoom call. But maybe one tip for women or men, just anything. One tip for workplaces, like what can workplaces do to make, how am I going to say it? To make themselves more attractive, better suited, just a better place for women, I guess. Chrissy, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, and I think there's like two things, because I think a lot of companies are looking to try and attract more women. And one of the ways that they're trying to do that is to try and pretend to be like something they're not and post images of like a diverse workplace and say that they're supportive. And I think it's first, like if you have a problem, just being upfront and saying that you're taking the steps to make a difference. And then working on trying to figure out resources for them, knowing that there might be a period of time where they're working on making change in the organization. Like you said, maybe having one woman salesperson, but you're partnering with women revenue and trying to think of like, how can we bring in support and mentorship to guide them? So I think that is like number one, something that they could do. And then the other thing would be to just do an internal worker assessment to see how can they provide, like how can they maybe place more women in leadership roles as well as their board, because like Shari said, I think when a lot of people are looking for job opportunities, they maybe go to that company, check out their team page for leadership and board members, which could be even a board member could be a place to start. But if you see all men, you sometimes get the feeling that there might be a certain feelings against women in leadership, which isn't great. So I think it's first addressing like whether there is a problem, and I'm not trying to hide it, but just, work on it. And then also figure out external opportunities you can provide, which is why Women in Revenue is great. Since we have mentorship programs, that could be somewhere where you point your employees to if you don't have something internally.
Awesome. All right, Lauren, what's your tip?
Well, I definitely agree with Chrissy that just starting to socialize the conversation and be really mindful, that's definitely would be my number one. But Women in Revenue every year publishes a report surveying hundreds of women saying, what's important to you? So I would offer up a copy of that report. It's free on womeninrevenue.org. And you can actually see what women in sales, marketing, and customer success want. Just a little teaser for it. They are looking for great benefits. They're looking for work-life balance. They're looking for mentorship and education opportunities. So really make sure that those things that are really important to them are being integrated into job descriptions and into the conversations. Shari, I'll let you take it away from here.
Yeah, Shari.
Yeah, my tip is pretty tactical, just as something that I think people can do on a weekly basis. I actually won't take credit. I believe it was Dave Brigatti that a few months ago tweeted this as a challenge to all males, and I thought it was really good of just what, no matter whether it's an internal meeting or you're an event organizer and you're planning the content lineup, look at force yourself to make a diverse lineup. Don't accept a panel if there's not 50% men, 50% women, or make something that you feel comfortable with in terms of diversity. If you're planning an internal SKO, let's have diverse people speaking at what is the next mission of our company, and really having representation, an easy change to make, and something you can do really regularly that will make a difference.
That's awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I know, like, from my perspective, it feels like, it really does need to be, you've got to actively think about it, or else it won't just happen. And that's, I think, my experience too, is like, we're planning a big event now too for the fall, and the speaker lineup, as we're thinking about the speaker lineup, it's like literally the first thing. It's like, who are the men we want to invite, who are the women we want to invite. Chrissy, by the way, I think you're going to get an invite.
I was going to say Women in Revenue should definitely be on your list.
Chrissy, you're on the list. Yeah, you're on the list of people that people brainstormed on. But and I think it's okay to talk about it too. Like, I think there's sometimes when people just they want to think that it's happening. You know what I mean? There's just, of course, somebody's thinking about it. You know what I mean? And so, but then I think if everyone's like, well, yes, somebody's thinking about it, then it doesn't get addressed. And so that's where, I try, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I think more modern people are just, they're just having it come out up front. It's okay to talk about it. It's like, it's okay that we're actively saying we want to have an equal number. It doesn't just have to be like, it's not solved yet. So we don't just have to pretend like it's solved and like, oh, we don't have to talk about it, it's just going to happen. So yes, if I have a tip, that would be my tip, is be proactive about it, which is just drafting off a lot of what you all have said. I have one last one. You guys, I've used that term at least 5 times probably on this call. Am I wrong? And it's okay if I'm wrong. Am I wrong? Should I come up with it? I use y'all a lot too, but I'm not from the South, so it doesn't come out as naturally. Should I stop using you guys?
I personally have stopped. I don't know if anyone.
Chrissy, you said you stopped? You're done?
I've tried to stop. Yeah, I think as a team at CS2, I said, let's just push ourselves to stop saying guys. And just say, you all or something like that. But I think that it's the smallest of the problems we have to target, I think.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, still a problem, but one of the smaller ones. I like it. Lauren, what's your take on it?
I was going to say, as a boy mom, it comes out of my mouth a lot too. Maybe something I need to be more mindful of.
Shari?
Ditto, 2 boys. I have a hard time stopping, and I agree on, I think there's bigger fish to fry, but if it does offend people, I 100% don't judge them if they want that to evolve. It's understandable.
I agree too. And feel free to tell me, anyone who listens to me, if I say it too much, just feel free to tell me to stop. All right, well, hey, thank y'all so much for being on this with me. I really appreciate it. This is another really great episode. Cheers to y'all, and many more to come.
Thanks for having us, Jason, and we appreciate the support of you and your organization.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed today's discussion and will tune in again. Find all of the B2B Category Creators episodes at Metadata.io. And if you have any feedback, topics, or would like to be a guest on the show, please reach out.